So this is another form of privacy-preserving machine learning. Anyone was there in the last session? I think that was Flower. Yeah, so this is another form of privacy-preserving machine learning. I don't know why my system is malfunctioning. But yeah, so this would typically be on the concept of full homomorphic encryption on a library called OpenFHE. So yeah, this is an open source library, and just to give the context of where this is coming from. So talking about privacy enhancing technologies, so these are tools and techniques that are used to protect data, enhance privacy, and therefore empower the user who possesses the data in terms of protecting their valuable information. Now, there are various kinds of privacy enhancing technologies like soft privacy technologies, hard and other privacy enhancing. So soft ones are basically, if you're developers, then you would know access control. Also differential privacy, which is like adding random noise to the data. Hard privacy technologies are like onion routing and virtual private networks. Other privacy enhancing technologies are typically homomorphic encryption, secure multi-party computation, communication anonymizer, data anonymizations, all of this. So just touching a line on the homomorphic encryption and secure multi-party encryption. So all of these are actually like also used for privacy preserving machine learning, which is a borrowed concept based on the privacy enhancing technologies. And this is typically used to enhance the privacy of machine learning training and learning. So the range of methodologies that are used for PPML is differential privacy, MPC, multi-party computation or secure multi-party computation, homomorphic encryption, and federated learning. So just to say where all of these originates from, differential privacy originates from the field of cryptography. So does SMPC, secure multi-party computation and multi-party computation, as well as homomorphic encryption has its origins from cryptography. Differential privacy is basically inducing noise to the data. Secure multi-party computation allows multiple parties to jointly compute a function over the private inputs without revealing much about the individual's private data. Homomorphic encryption enables computation that can be performed on encrypted data without the necessity of decrypting it. And federated learning borrows the concept from machine learning, distributed systems, and cryptography. It is basically a distributed machine learning approach where the training data remains more on the local devices and server. So in this talk, we will be building upon the homomorphic encryption. So what is homomorphic encryption? It basically allows mathematical operations to be performed on encrypted data without decrypting it, which essentially means that computation can be carried on the encrypted data and the results can be obtained from the encrypted form itself. HE, homomorphic encryption, enables data to be processed and analyzed while maintaining the confidentiality of the data. This is a high-level block diagram on how homomorphic encryption works. So first is, at the very top, we have X, which is the input data. Then generally, if we perform any kind of operations on the input data, we get fx, the functions of the operations that we perform. For homomorphic encryption, what we do is we add a layer of encryption to the plain text, to the raw data. So so the input data, consider it as a plain text, which essentially is applied with an encryption algorithm, and then we get the encrypted form of data. And then we perform a function f, which could be addition, multiplication, subtraction, but FHE cannot handle divisions. So this function f at the bottom is basically homomorphic operations. So it is so here you can perform either addition, multiplication, or subtraction, and then you get an encoded, then you get an output, which is the encrypted output itself on the encrypted data. Then, if you decrypt that output, you basically get that function X, pretty much that you would have applied on the unencrypted data. Now, there are three kinds of homomorphic encryption. One is partially homomorphic encryption, which either allows addition or multiplication operations to be performed on encrypted data. So only in partial homomorphic encryption, only one single mathematical function can be applied on the encrypted values. On somewhat homomorphic encryption, you can apply both addition and multiplication operations on the encrypted data. But you should know that there is a limit to the number of operations that can be performed. So on full homomorphic encryption, this is the most powerful of the three. It allows unlimited operations of additions and multiplications, and both can be used together, unlike partially homomorphic encryption, where you can just use one or the other. And this also is fastest amongst all three. Now, building on full homomorphic encryption, typically this is the mechanism of an FHE, where you first generate a key pair, a public key and a secret key. So using that key pair, you basically perform encryption on the data. And then once you perform encryption on the data, you then apply the homomorphic operation on those encrypted data. And then you perform evaluation of computation, which also can be performed on the data without the need to decrypt it, on the encrypted data without the need to decrypt it. And then if you remember that homomorphic encryption diagram, then you can finally use the secret key that you have generated from the keygen pair to decrypt the results. Some of the encrypted ML approaches that are used with full homomorphic encryption are approximate approaches, an hybrid approach, and a lookup table approach. So what is an approximate approach? This is, in terms of computation, this is the fastest for most machine learning applications, especially when it's a larger problem size. And in this case, not all functions are supported, but only approximation must be used. And hybrid approach is a blend of approximation approach and the third approach, the lookup table approach. So lookup table is pretty much like looking up on a value as you do it in case of Excel. So the lookup table approach is the slowest option amongst the three approach, but it is still easiest to use in most cases. And now the hybrid approach uses a blend of approximations and the lookup table approach. It is significantly slower than approximate approach, but faster than the lookup table approach. And in case of hybrid approach, it uses the lookup table to evaluate the tricky nonlinear functions. So just building a little bit on depth about the approach one, approximate approach. It is also known as the CKKS. These are the names of the researchers who have developed these algorithms. And so approximate approach, also known as the CKKS scheme, is basically a technique that is used in full homomorphic encryption to perform the encrypted version of machine learning. Some of the key features of this approach is it uses approximations of complicated functions. It uses the min-max method of the Chebyshev interpolations. It uses SIMD vector evaluations, which stands for single instruction, multiple data. What happens in case of SIMD is you pass a sets of data, and then it integrates all the data together. It allows for parallel processing of multiple data elements, which improves further efficiency of the computation. And this approach also relies on the importance of bootstrapping, and also this approach helps for faster inferencing on ML problems. Now, the next approach is the hybrid approach or the lookup table approach. Some of the key characteristics of this approach is that it uses approximate method for polynomial or matrix arithmetic. It uses the lookup table approach for nonlinear functions. This approach is useful for comparison between the encrypted values, and when it comes to comparison, it also involves nonlinear functions and the LUT lookup table evaluations, which can provide accurate results for this comparison. It allows scheme switching, which is basically different schemes that are available within the federated homomorphic encryption approach, and which we'll see in a while. And then this approach also suffers from the LUT evaluation bottleneck because lookup table approach is slow when it comes to larger data. And finally, the pure lookup table approach has characteristics such as it helps in evaluations of deep learning algorithms. It does have performance drawback, and it lacks the SIMD lookup table evaluation, and definitely it's way slower than the other two approaches. Now, the OpenFHE library in action. This is the software stack of OpenFHE. At the very bottom, we have the hardware accelerators, the hardware backends, and then on top of that, the OpenFHE library, which handles all the cryptographic functions that are required in terms of performing FHE, and then the high-level capabilities such as matrix arithmetic, and then on top of that sits the SDKs, which are Google Transpilers, Python SDKs, and Node.js SDKs, and then on top of that we have on top of the Python SDK, we basically have the ML applications or inference and training. And of course, this is an open source library, so it has a huge amount of community support and GitHub presence as well. And of course, the nature of OpenFHE is to enable developers to use a modular approach to get their job done in terms of encrypted FHE applications. Some of the key classes to look in terms of the library is the cryptocontext class, the ciphertext class, and the plaintext class. So the cryptocontext class is basically a wrapper that encapsulates the various FHE schemes, the crypto parameters, and the encoding parameters, as well as the keys that we generate. This also provides an unified API for all kinds of homomorphic encryption schemes supported under the OpenFHE library. This class also allows user to define the cryptographic context, including the kinds of encryption scheme that needs to be used, that one wants to use, the parameters for encryption and encoding, and the keys required for encryption and decryption operations. One thing to remember is the cryptocontext class serves as the central component for managing the cryptographic context and performing various operations on encrypted data. The ciphertext class is used to store the ciphertext polynomials generated during the encryption process. It represents the encrypted form of the plaintext data and contains the encrypted coefficients or elements. Also, this ciphertext class provides methods to perform operations on encrypted data, such as homomorphic addition or multiplication. It also allows to perform computations on encrypted data without revealing the underlying information. The plaintext class is used to store the plaintext data both in its raw format and in encoded form as well. It represents the original data that is encrypted using the homomorphic encryption scheme. The plaintext class also provides methods for encoding and decoding the plaintext data, allowing it to be encrypted and decrypted correctly, and it allows user to work with the original data in a secure private manner, and just by maintaining the confidentiality. Now, these are some of the essential parameters to know while coding up the ML pipeline using OpenFHE. The first one is multiplication depth. So this determines how many computation we can perform before the noise overwhelms the ciphertext. And it is important to actually choose an appropriate depth based on the complexity of the computation one needs to perform. The ring dimension, it determines the size of the ciphertext. It sets a larger ring dimension, setting a larger ring dimension provides more security. The ring dimension determines the number of slots available in the ciphertext, where each slot usually holds a value. And let's just say, in terms of example, if you have a dimension set to n is equal to 8192, then the ciphertext can hold exactly half of its value, which is n by 2, which is 4096 values. The scaling mod size parameter, this determines the precision of computation in the CKK's scheme. The scaling mod size represents the maximum absolute value that can be represented in the ciphertext. A larger scaling mod size allows for more precise computation, and it is important to choose an appropriate scaling mod size based on the desired precisions of computation. The batch size, this is slightly different from the batch size that we use in case of deep neural networks. So this, in case of OpenFHE, it specifies the number of ciphertext messages that can be processed in parallel, and by encrypting multiple messages into a single ciphertext, batch processing can be performed efficiently. Also, this batch size determines the number of slots the ciphertext can hold individual messages. Now, going into the depth of this, each of these is the multiplicative depth in OpenFHE. So it plays a crucial role in bounding the number of mathematical operations that can be performed on the encrypted ciphertexts. This also determines the maximum number of sequential multiplication that can be executed before reaching a limit. The multiplicative depth directly impacts the size of the ciphertext and the computation time that it requires. What is the impact on noise? So it is important to consider that noise growth when performing arithmetic operations in homomorphic encryption. Each operation, such as addition or multiplication, increases the noise in the ciphertext. However, when inducing noise, from that perspective, you need to know that multiplication is actually costlier than addition. And cryptographic bootstrapping, so in order to address the issues of noise accumulation and maintaining the correctness of computation, cryptographic bootstrapping is used. So this process involves decryption in the ciphertext, performing necessary operations on the plaintext, and then re-encrypting it to obtain a new ciphertext. The ring dimension, also represented as n, is an important parameter in OpenFHE. It determines the size of the ciphertext, which is a large power, usually of 2. The plaintext data is stored in the ciphertext, and the extra entries are used to maintain security. Changing the ring dimension in OpenFHE can be done by modifying the cryptocontext class, and you can use the setRingDim function to set the desired ring dimensions when creating the crypto context. The scaling mod size is an important parameter when it comes to CKKS encryption scheme, and it uses precision and scaling. It also helps in precision loss, and it performs additions and multiplications. And the batch size, so in relation to OpenFHE, the batch size helps in parallel processing. It improves the performance, it directly impacts the performance, and in terms of setting the batch size, it is important to know that this can be set while you create the cryptocontext class. And the specific method for setting the batch size may depend on the version and implementations of OpenFHE being used. It is recommended to refer the OpenFHE documentation, which actually helps you which guides you on the batch size that would be ideal for your application. And some simple mathematical operations. So this actually is the fundamental that can be used to build up an ML model. So the first block of code, the first line is we are importing the OpenFHE library. The next 3 lines, the multiplication depth, the scaling mod size, and the batch size, these are used to set the parameters of the cryptographic context. Notice we did not add the ring dimension. If we don't add that, then OpenFHE by default assigns a value of the ring dimension, right? And then the parameters object is created using the CC-param CKK RNS class, which represents the parameters of the cryptographic context. This class is specific to the CKK scheme, which is used for real number arithmetic operations in case of OpenFHE. The set multiplicative depth method is called on the parameters object to set the multiplicative depth. This determines the number of multiplication operations that can be performed on encrypted data before the noise level becomes too high. The set scaling mod size method is called to set the scaling modular size. This parameter affects the precision of the computation performed on the encrypted data. The set batch size method is called to set the batch size. This parameter basically determines the number of plain text elements that can be processed in parallel. And on the right-hand side, the CC is basically an object created using the gen crypto context, which is where we are generating the cryptographic context based on the specified parameters. The enable method is used on the CC objects to enable the partially homomorphic encryption and leveled homomorphic encryption. The key object is created to generate the keygen, which is the combination of private key and public key and secret key. And then the eval mult keygen method is called upon on the CC object to generate the evaluation multiplication key using the secret key. The second action is you're packing, encrypting, and computing. Consider the first one to be a set of data or data frame. So you have two frames, x1 and x2. Then the next step, here you're using the make CKK's packed plain text method. In this step, so you're using this function to prepare the plain text value based on the data frames. And then in the third step, you're using this function to encrypt the plain text that have been generated from the data frame. And then on the fourth step, you're using the inherent capabilities of OpenFHE to perform addition, subtraction, multiplication, scalar multiplication, or homomorphic multiplication on the encrypted data. And finally, the last step is decrypting. So you see the cc.decrypt. This is where you decrypt all the previously derived values, CAD, CSUB, using the secret key. And then you set the set length function is basically used to set the length of the plain text to batch size. And this essentially is done to ensure that the plain text have the same length for further processing or analysis. And the last part is basically you're printing, but you're using the getRealPacked function to retrieve the real values of the plain text, and then you print the real values. Now, OpenFHE is still under development, but has seen some successful application in terms of these research papers. So there was a genome-wide association studies, a few more here, and some DARPA programs. So this is funded by DARPA, and yeah. Now, this was an example shown. If you want, I can show you a code example, but otherwise the talk is done, and thank you for your patience if there is any question. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that amazing session. How many questions do we have? One. Okay.
So we tried something similar in 2020 because we had the storage and we don't want to extract the data can allows privacy. The problem that we faced was performance. So this is as AI latencies. Have you tried with the massive amount of data?
When you say massive amount of data in terms of deep learning, maybe not that much, but it does fairly well in terms of mid-sized data. But the performance is obviously an infrastructure issue, so yeah.
So just to understand, you mentioned noise a few times, and so is it a probabilistic process? At the end, am I guaranteed to get the exactly correct results decrypted?
Yes,
Okay.
but here we are using the FHE method. There is another method called differential privacy that adds random noise to your data.
Okay.
You can try that and see as well. Yeah, but you'll get the output. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We could take one more.
You mentioned there was another parameter for increasing or decreasing security.
Yeah, the
So-
ring size.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you had that too low, how would somebody go
So-
about accessing the data and getting past the privacy?
So it's ideally recommended not to have it low because the large size basically determines more security. And if you don't define it manually, then by default, OpenFHE, depending on the data set that you've inputted, it does take a value.
Okay, and I think that will be the end of the session. Thank you very much, Sukanya, for the amazing session. Please, a round of applause for her.